your attention, please.
You need passion. You need desire. You need one. We play with that passion. We play together. We play for each other. And we play to win. We are Notre Dame.
Yes, it's time once again for our Notre Dame American football feature, and it's my great pleasure to welcome to the programme once again Len Clark. Len, welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Declan. Last night in Athens, Georgia, over 92,000 fans at Sanford Stadium, the largest attended football game in state of Georgia history. They witnessed a classic football game, but unfortunately the Fighting Irish came up short. They lose to the third-ranked Georgia Bulldogs by a score of 23-17.
Now, I'm going to bring some commentary and of some of the action that took place, but we're going to start with a play that had a decision gone the other way. This touchdown may have counted, and we might have been looking at a tie and overtime.
Up is the fullback. Tony Jones, the tailback, booked from under center. Rolls out to his right on play action. This is going to be an easy touchdown, Notre Dame. Brock Wright all by himself in the back corner. Irish, 6-0.
Timeout. It's called by Georgia.
Oh, I don't know. Just play football right here. Ian Book will get under center. He'll now have an empty backfield. Drops back. Rolls to his left. Still backpedaling. Throws. Caught for the touchdown. Cole Kmet. Irish up 6-0. Ian Book took the snap, patiently backpedaled and shuffled to his left, and floated it back to the middle of the end zone, where Cole Kmet jumped up and snared it. 6-0 Notre Dame. Gets the ball inside, give to Swift, right up the middle. Touchdown, Georgia. Middle of the field, Jonathan Dorr will attempt. The ball's right between the 16 and 17-yard line. We'll call it a 27-yard field goal with 5 seconds left in the half, and the game all tied at 7. Dorr 1 for 1 on the season. There's the snap, there's the hold, there's the kick. It's up, and it is good. No time left. We've played 2 quarters, and Notre Dame leads third-ranked Georgia 10-7 on their first trip to Athens.
We're going to stop the live commentary play-by-play there at this point because we can discuss the first half. That first play, it was a very, very late timeout that was called.
Well, the sideline judge called the timeout. Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, was calling timeout, and he's allowed to do that. And unfortunately, the other refs did not see that, and the play was executed. Notre Dame did score that touchdown, but it was negated because the timeout was called.
And again, if that touchdown had counted, we might have been looking at a tie situation and overtime at the end of the game.
Woulda, coulda, and shoulda, but it was a tale of 2 different halves. Notre Dame really came out and I would say dominated that first half. And Declan, the big surprise, Notre Dame was a 14-point underdog going into the game. Nobody in the media, national media around the country, gave Notre Dame a chance. And strength, Notre Dame's defense rose to the occasion, and they shut the Georgia Bulldogs down. Unfortunately, Notre Dame did not have a running game yesterday. They only rushed the ball 14 times for 46 yards, so a lot of it was based on the arm of Ian Book, and Georgia has a pretty good defensive, too, and in the second half they made the adjustments, and the little things made the difference. Notre Dame made too many penalties, gave up too many mistakes, gave up a couple of interceptions, and good teams find a way to win, and Georgia did last night.
And their accuracy from field goals was a help because Notre Dame went in at the start of the third quarter leading by 10-7, and 2 field goals got Georgia not only level but 13-10 in front. We're going to take some pieces of play from the second half and we're going to discuss them with you in a moment, so we'll take those now.
Rodrigo Blankenship from 40 yards out. He's 5 out of 5 so far this season with a long of 50. He's from the near hash. The kick is up. Plenty of leg. and it's good. 40-yard field goal from Rodrigo Blankenship. 8:31 left in the game here in Athens. Notre Dame 10, Georgia 10. Simmons, as you said, had his hands on it, back corner of the end zone, but an acceleration into him by Bracey causes the breakup. 31-yard field goal attempt by Blankenship is up, sailing toward the uprights and through them. And it might be your first-team All-American kicker. He's 2 for 2 tonight. On 4th down and 9, 12:35 and counting left in the second quarter. Jay has his heels on his own 28-yard line. He's punted one time to 9 for 46 yards. Gets this one away. It's end over end. Fair catch. Fumble! It's fumbled! And Notre Dame has it on the 8-yard line. Oh, baby! Chase Claypool recovers the muffed punt. Muffed punt on the 8-yard line of Georgia. Tyler Simmons, the captain wide receiver, couldn't bring it in. Book is in the shotgun. 3 wideouts to his left. Drops back. Bulldogs bring 4. Throws to his left to Chris Fink. Bounced out of his hands. Being bobbled. It's picked off. Georgia has it. Now they fumbled the ball, and they fumbled it out of bounds. Chris Fink had it hit him in the chest. It was intercepted by Georgia's Devon Wilson, the safety. He fumbled out of bounds. Georgia will have possession on the Notre Dame 22-yard line. Georgia, 3 out of 8 converting third down. This is 3rd down and 7. Blitz comes again. Fromm to the far sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Bulldogs. Lawrence Cager with the back shoulder fade. Jumped high to snare it in the far corner of the end zone. Over quarterback Troy Pride for the 15-yard score. 1st and goal from the 4. Book takes the snap, looks to the far side of the end zone, throws to Claypool, touchdown Notre Dame. Back shoulder fade just as Claypool got across the pylon. 6 points Notre Dame. It's 23-16 Georgia with 3:12 left.
So, Len, just to cue the next piece of play, it ended up being 23-17, and we're going to play the last play of the game, which, again, if things had worked out differently, we would have been looking at possibly overtime or possibly a 1-point win for Notre Dame. So we're going to play that last call now. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ian Book looking for 9+. He's in the shotgun. Takes a snap. Drops back. He's in trouble. Rolls out. Still in trouble. Finds time. Lifts it way down the middle of the field to Claypool. Falls incomplete. Ball knocked to the ground. Incomplete. Georgia will take over.
And that was the last chance for Notre Dame to get something out of this game. But like you said, they went into this game as underdogs, and this is the first time that they've played a team that is... it was 11th straight defeat, I'm looking at here, against top 5 competition. But it wasn't a blowout, and they were in the game for the full 60 minutes.
Exactly right. Notre Dame, over the past 11 games against top 5 teams, has not had a great record. But yesterday was really, it could have, if Notre Dame would have won that game, it would have went down into Notre Dame folklore as being one of the greatest games ever played. But Georgia in the second half kicked the 3 field goals by Rodrigo Blankenship, and that's just a sign that Notre Dame did not allow Georgia to score touchdowns. They did give up a touchdown in the second half, actually 2. No, just the 1. And that's just a sign that the Notre Dame defense had a great game plan. Defensive coordinator Clark Lee really put a game plan together. It was the defense that really kept Notre Dame in the ball game. And then you played that last clip. Notre Dame, Chase Claypool, your favorite player, caught that 4-yard touchdown pass with 3 minutes and 12 seconds. The defense came out, stopped Georgia. Notre Dame had a final drive. They could have won the ball game, but Georgia just put the defensive pressure on Ian Book. He scrambled out of the pocket, heaved it up there, and Big Chase went up for it, just could not bring it down. And the ball went over on downs to Georgia with about 50 seconds to play, and then they just took a knee to end the clock, just to run the clock out and preserve that 23-16 victory. But a statement game for Notre Dame. A lot of individuals are saying that Notre Dame is a team on the rise, that it's not a fluke about the 12-0 record last year. It was a great game for Notre Dame, but unfortunately it was a loss. And in the post-game press conference, Coach Brian Kelly says, we'll know a lot about this team, the way that they prepare and play Virginia that comes into Notre Dame Stadium next week. So a tough game. let's see how they bounce back.
And if they can keep it to one loss, the playoffs are still attainable, definitely. I mean, with the program and the schedule that is lined out for Notre Dame this season, the Fighting Irish can still make one of those playoff games.
Very tough because Notre Dame does not play in a conference. Now, Georgia, I'll give you an example, Alabama and Georgia. A couple of years ago, Alabama got beat in the regular season, I think by Georgia, and then they go to the SEC championship game, and they win. They become the national championship, even though they didn't win the regular season title in their conference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually tougher for Notre Dame because they do not affiliate with the conference. And so running the table 11-1, we'll have to find out how the rest of college football does. So there's always that backdoor possibility. Unfortunately, Notre Dame could not go to the front door this year.
Okay, so it's a bit more in the lap of the gods this year than it was last year.
Exactly, but there's a lot to really smile about after yesterday. First of all, they had great defensive play, but then you also saw tight end Cole Kmet coming back from injury. It was his first appearance, and he led the team in receptions with 9 for 108 yards.
And he got that opening touchdown. He got that opening touchdown as well.
He did. That big opening touchdown was a great confidence builder, not only for Notre Dame, but for tight end Cole Kmet. So that was a positive. But Declan, the big question mark right now, because of the injuries at running back, Tony Jones just he ran the ball, but when you run it against that Georgia defense, it was tough. And yesterday they did not rush the ball very well. And Tony Jones with only 22 yards. And, you can't win ball games if you can't move the ball across the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. That's almost a cardinal rule of the game of American football, really, isn't it?
But Ian Book, 29 of 47 passing, 2 interceptions and 2 touchdowns. Now his counterpart, Jake Fromm, was 20 of 26, did not throw an interception, and he had a touchdown pass for 187 yards. So Ian Book's statistics were up there as far as passing because he had to, because Notre Dame could not get that run going. But Georgia made the adjustments, and Coach Brian Kelly in the post-game press conference says that, hey, he needs to coach better. It's those things, but a very hostile environment. Brian Kelly said it was probably the most physical game he has ever coached. It was an epic, just an electrifying atmosphere, the largest football game in Georgia history. And Declan, they pulled out all the stops. They had about a half hour before the game, a flyover, all sorts of different activities, a lot of adrenaline. And by the time kickoff came around, I was already wiped out because of all the noise and just that atmosphere. But it was a great college football game, but unfortunately somebody has to lose. And Kirby Smart, the head coach of Georgia, really had accolades for Notre Dame and says, it's unfortunate that a team has to lose when they put up a performance like they did yesterday.
Well, I mean, I know some people might dismiss that as a platitude, but it's something to build on for Notre Dame, particularly as we said, they're playing a school rated in the top 5.
Exactly, and this was also a big game in terms of recruiting. Notre Dame has gone into the Peach State of Georgia and has pulled out some of their top athletes. A win down there would have really solidified their territory in terms of recruiting, but they come up a little bit short. But I guarantee a lot of those skill players that are down in Georgia will say, hey, that's a program I think I can help beat Georgia. So I think a victory for Notre Dame yesterday is that they made big inroads in SEC country, that they can go down there and get the players that might go to an SEC school and bring them up north to go to Notre Dame.
Well, that's another potential positive out of yesterday's excellent performance.
There was a lot to take away in terms of positives, but unfortunately you have to focus on the big negative, and that was the loss. But the big keys this week, one, stay healthy, and it was very physical, so I imagine the players are getting treatment today and resting up before they hit to the practice field and start preparing for the Virginia Cavaliers for next Saturday. But just take it game by game, play by play, continue to improve, work out some of those bugs. But right now with the running back position, it really is a case of injuries. Jameer Smith did not play because of a turf toe injury. That's the second game that he has missed. And so they're a little bit depleted there, and not a lot of running the football yesterday because they couldn't do it against that Georgia defense. And so going into the Virginia game, that running game is still in question, but I would say look for Notre Dame to try to get the running game established next weekend.
Are there any guys that have been on the hurt list, injured list, whatever you want to call it, that might be back in the frame, so to speak, for next weekend's game with the view to having had a bit of rest and healing time? They might be available for Coach Kelly to include in the roster.
Well, the one who probably would be Jameer Smith. He has a turf toe, a very painful injury, but he's missed 2 games. But Michael Young is still out with a collarbone injury. We don't know the status as to how that is healing, but we do know that Jafar Armstrong, one of their top running backs, will not be available until early November. And so Notre Dame has moved Avery Dennis back from defense back to offense, and he got a touch last night, and they need to help him progress as well. But you never can tell. They might take somebody that is in the backfield in defense right now and try to convert him into the offense to see what they could do to try to find that right combination, that personality, and that chemistry.
Yeah, because as you were saying, that they need to get something going with the running game, because it's been an issue. I mean, we were saying that quarterback Buck has had to rush himself quite a bit, and that's not a good sign from that standpoint.
And Ian was the second leading rusher last night as well. And the other thing that needs to improve, Declan, is the offensive line. There were a lot of penalties. It was so loud there last night that Notre Dame usually goes with a slap count where Ian Book, the quarterback, will clap his hands, and then the players will execute the play. Because it was so loud, they went with the timing, and some of the players thought they heard a clap, and they were still in that mindset. And so yesterday, Notre Dame with 12 penalties for 85 yards, negative 85 yards, as opposed to Georgia's 6 penalties yesterday for 43 yards. So when you add in the interceptions, the mental mistakes, and the penalties, that also contributed to that downfall of the Irish yesterday.
And yet, as we said, they were like 2 plays away from getting something out of this game.
That just shows the resiliency. Notre Dame scored when they needed to. When they were trailing Georgia, they hadn't moved the ball at all in the second half, and they moved the ball down the field, get that touchdown by Chase Claypool. They step it up on defense. They get the ball back, and they just couldn't get it. Maybe last year they would have got it done, but this year they're facing a very good, big defensive team in Georgia, and they just got Ian Book out of his rhythm. They forced him out of the pocket, and he made a bad throw, and Chase Claypool was triple team. He went up for it like a center in basketball and just couldn't pull down the rebound.
Now, Virginia, what sort of a challenge are they going to present? They're not a top 5 school, are they?
Not a top 5, but they are an ACC school, and Notre Dame has an affiliation with the ACC. And a couple of years ago, when they went down to Charlottesville to play, it went down to the wire. That's when their quarterback broke his ankle, and they brought in a reserve quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser, who ended up being the starting quarterback for the rest of the year and the next year after that. But on any given day, anybody in the United States can beat anybody on the football field. But look for Notre Dame to have a little bit more confidence, knowing that they played a top 5 school like Georgia, the number 3 team in the country. They're playing at home, which is always an advantage, but something to prove. And they will be challenged this week by Brian Kelly and the coaching staff, saying, how will you respond to the adversity you experienced last week? And this will really be the telltale sign. If they respond to the challenge, Notre Dame should win handily. If they don't, it could be a dogfight at South Bend next Saturday at Notre Dame Stadium.
Well, of course, in a dogfight, it's not the size of the dog, it's the size of the fight in the dog that counts, really, isn't it?
Well, I tell you what, there's some big dogs on that field, those Bulldogs yesterday of Georgia, but Notre Dame hung in there. It was, somebody described it to me yesterday, it was like a Rocky movie. You're pulling for Rocky, but you knew that Apollo Creed was just going to beat him up that plate. But if there was a rematch, Notre Dame will take the rematch. Yeah,
I think the regrettable thing for me was, like, and I heard that first snippet of commentary about the first touchdown that got ruled out because of the timeout. I thought to myself, I don't think this is going to go well. This is before I even researched the result. I could tell even from that first play.
Once again, it's the adversity. You know, you can't focus on that and say, you know, we should have had that. You know, you have to get that proper mindset and say, hey, we scored. We can do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if they do that. And when I walked off the field, I was actually down there right in front of that Chase Claypool when he couldn't pull it in the last play of the game. And then walking to the media room, I was walking next to Ian Book. And, you know, he held his head high. And he was very complimentary of his teammates. He didn't hang his head down. And that's a sign of a leader saying, hey, that's just a setback. We still have a lot of season in front of us. And so that's what Notre Dame really needs, is that on-field leader. And that's going to pay dividends down the road as Notre Dame has a tough game with Virginia, and then they have a lesser-known team, a lower-tier team in Bowling Green coming in, and then they get ready for that big intersectional rivalry, the biggest rivalry Notre Dame has. That's the USC Trojans out of Los Angeles, and that's just about 3-4 weeks away. And so a lot of football left to be played. Let's see how Notre Dame responds.
Bowling Green, they're from Kentucky, aren't they?
Well, there is a Bowling Green, Kentucky, but this school is actually in Ohio. It's just south of Toledo.
Yeah.
And they play in the Mid-American Conference with Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Ball State, and Central Michigan, and Miami of Ohio. So they don't get the type of players that Notre Dame does, but on any given Saturday, a MAC team, a Mid-American Conference team, has knocked off a big team like a Big Ten school. Toledo did that a couple of years ago against Purdue. So anything can happen, but right now they've got Virginia. Maybe Bowling Green would have been a better team next week, but I think you want that competition to say, hey, let's see how we've progressed and see what we can do.
Yeah, the reason I know about the other Bowling Green in Kentucky is because of the Everly brothers.
The Everly brothers, and it's also where they make the Corvette down in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. No, the Everly brothers.
Right.
The Everly brothers had a song about Bowling Green.
Yeah, that's a great part of Kentucky down there, and but there are a couple of Bowling Greens. There might even be a Bowling Green in Indiana, but there's only one Bowling Green school. Actually, in Bowling Green, Kentucky, that's the home of Western Kentucky University.
Aha! So they're called Western Kentucky. They obviously won't be.
Toppers.
They don't play Notre Dame very often, I take it, or if at all.
They have never played Notre Dame.
There you
This
go.
is the first time Bowling Green will have played. They are the Falcons, and it's the first time that they will be in Notre Dame Stadium. Last year, a Mid-American Conference school, Ball State played Notre Dame for the first time. But they are a BCS school, and which means that they can compete for the national championship. But it's good to have a school like that to give them a little exposure, and it's always a big money gate for them as well. When they come to Notre Dame Stadium, they usually walk out with a little percentage of the crowd, as Notre Dame will sell that out, and it actually supports their athletic department down at the school like a Bowling Green.
That's good. So every year I take it that a new school emerges that as an opponent for Notre Dame that they probably have never played before.
In the past couple of years, they've done that. Over the past couple of years, a Western Michigan, a Ball State, a Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio. As I said, it's just a chance for these schools to get a little national recognition. Now, Notre Dame has never played a lower division school, an FCS school, they call it, like Arkansas State, which lost to Georgia last week 55-0. Is an FCS school, but Notre Dame was one of only two schools in the United States that has never scheduled a lower-tier opponent, and Notre Dame traditionally has one of the toughest schedules in all of college football, and every time they play an opponent like a Bowling Green, it's their Super Bowl. So everybody comes into Notre Dame Stadium looking for that upset. This is their Super Bowl, and it seems like every week Notre Dame's on top of the mountain, and somebody wants to knock them off of it. And so it's tough to be one of the better-known football schools in the nation.
Yeah, Arkansas State would be better known as a basketball school. I think they won the NCAA title once or twice.
That was the University of Arkansas. Arkansas State is a sister school in Jonesboro, Arkansas, not as big as the Razorback school.
Mm-hmm. No, I think they were at least in an NCAA final because I got them in a quiz once.
Well, I tell you, it was a. I went down there. Yes, I've been up for 35 hours. It was a whirlwind tour down to Athens, Georgia. It was an electrifying night, and I come back, and actually on NBC Sports here in the United States, they're showing the Ireland-Scotland rugby match from Tokyo. I don't know if that game has already been played.
It was played this morning, Irish time.
Well, don't tell me the score.
No, I won't. You're going to enjoy it. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Well, I'm going to enjoy it for 5 minutes, and I'm probably going to fall asleep. But it was, if we can say this, Declan, a loss was a good thing for the Irish because they really found out what they were capable of. Unfortunately, it's a loss.
Yeah, but again, the important thing was the performance didn't suck. That was the important thing.
Exactly, and not that many Notre Dame fans out there, over 92,000 fans, but not many green shirts. It was a sea of red, and something very interesting last night at the start of the fourth quarter, they installed red lights around the stadium, and they had this red laser light show and turned the whole stadium scarlet.
Okay.
And I've never seen that at a college football game. But I tell you what, it was well choreographed, and it was loud. It was one of the most electrifying places I've ever watched a college football game, and that might have had something to do as well from a psychological standpoint.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there for the moment, as we're almost out of time. Len, thank you so much for joining us as always, and we look forward to picking the bones out of the Virginia match in 7 days' time.
You guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week on the Ball.
Now, that's all we have time for with our Notre Dame slot.